Hello, Sonia. It's great. Thank you so much for taking the time. Welcome, everybody. So I wanted to just take some time, invite Sonia on to have a little chat about food and how that can truly be medicine, probably better sometimes than anything that we write as physicians. So this is Sonia Schonenberg. She's a registered dietitian nutritionist. She's also a certified diabetic educator, so has a wealth of knowledge when it comes to nutrition and its applicability to medicine and how do we really use food to optimize people's health. And this was really just, an opportunity for us just to chat a little bit about how do we navigate all of this. So Sonia, if you don't mind first, I think what would be helpful is just to give people a sense of, with credentials, how do you know where your information is coming from? Just a quick little blurb on what's the difference between a dietitian versus a nutritionist. So if you could just give some clarity to that for us, I think that'd be helpful as a foundation point.
Absolutely. And first of all, I want to say thank you so much for having me today, and hello to everyone that's watching this video wherever you are. And I am really a believer that food is medicine. So I think you're in the right place to hear the right message today with two people that are very passionate about exactly that. So I am a registered dietitian, nutritionist, and certified diabetes educator. I always say that 10 times fast. But really what that means is I spent a lot of years in school learning about the science and really taking a deep dive into the world of nutrition. And once that degree was completed, I went on to do a year's internship, which really encompassed a lot of things as it was more related to medical nutrition therapy. So nutrition as it relates to disease states and how to best navigate each disease state with, different food plans. And of course, some of that included, nutrition for critically ill people. And what I learned during that process was that's a very important place to have nutrition. But the most important thing was to really capture how to keep them well. And so a registered dietitian is somebody who is trained very, very thoroughly in not only medical nutrition therapy, but areas of health and wellness as well. And so from there, you can branch into really any different area of wellness. And of course, my passions are prevention and really working in that space. And so a registered dietitian nutritionist simply means that a nutritionist is also a registered dietitian, but not a nutritionist that has, say, taken a 3-day exam and has some credentials. They call themselves a nutritionist. But again, it's a very thorough deep dive into what is the science behind nutrition. And then I became a certified diabetes educator a number of years later into my career. And that really came from default as I was working very closely with the diabetic population in one of my jobs that I previously had. And in really wanting to be good with helping this population, I decided to actually sit for that exam, which was very grueling, but became an expert in diabetes. And, once again, I found myself thinking, there's so much that I could have helped this individual with so that they never ended up with diabetes. And so now I use these degrees as really the foundation for what it is that I do, but I've really switched my focus into helping people stay well. And what are those things that we can do with food and with lifestyle to help keep them well? So does that answer your question?
Yes, definitely. And I think that the two words that popped out at me is wellness and prevention. And when it comes to medicine, I think that, I shouldn't say I think, I know, and the research supports that if we can change people's diet, if we can really focus on their nutrition, we can actually prevent a fair number, if not all, the chronic disease that we spend a ton of time and resources taking care of people in later years. So there's so much to be done, I think, in sort of shifting that focus towards prevention. And from your perspective, in medicine, I have that conversation a lot when I see patients, but in your world, in your sphere, do you think folks are ready to really adopt sort of this notion of food as medicine and really, are they hungry for that information? What are you seeing in your sphere of influence?
Yeah, and that's a really great question. And I think it's even more relevant now more than ever. And what I love about what you're doing as a physician is that I meet a lot of physicians, and I've worked with a lot of physicians throughout the years where it's very reactive medicine, and it's, the patient comes in, we treat the problem instead of finding out why the patient has the problem in the first place, which is kind of your world and my world colliding. And I think the information, knowledge is power. So whatever we can empower people with, it can be the best knowledge and information in the world, but they have to be ready to receive it. So there's a lot of mindset focus that has to come into the play as well. And when people are ready to receive the information and you can show them the benefits of what something as simple as a plate of green goodness can do for them, and you really paint the picture of food as medicine in terms of helping them prevent having to come to their physician years later in life to take the medication, then the image becomes more powerful. But I think given the circumstances that we're living through right now, a pandemic, which I never expected to see in my lifetime, or at least I hoped I hadn't, I wouldn't experience that in my lifetime. But I think now more than ever, people are open to this idea of testing and learning more about themselves and how do I keep myself well? And right now it's how do I keep that virus away? But that spreads people's wings into a bigger arena, which means how do I keep myself well overall so that if there is another pandemic or another something that peeks into my world, that I've taken care of my health and my immune system all along. So I think it's becoming a lot more popular, which I couldn't be more excited about.
I know. I think, sometimes it's for as really, as much as COVID has really shook, I think, our whole society. I think I'm hoping there's some benefit that comes out of it, right? Sort of shifting the focus, not just in healthcare towards prevention, but also society at a large, which I think is really powerful. I think patients can truly drive where they want the focus to go. And if they start demanding, more prevention and more information around that. So I'm hopeful that that blessing comes out of this pandemic, is to really make that shift. What are your thoughts on like a whole food or plant predominant whole food diet? I know there's a lot of research that supports that in prevention of chronic disease, being someone that spent a ton of time in that nutrition realm. What's your take on that? And is that, do you feel like that's an appropriate starting point for people if they wanted to sort of change their trajectory, right? Really dive into how to maximize their health and really look for wellness.
So one of the things that I've learned throughout the years, and you can relate to this, is every January 1st, there's a new diet trend that comes, whether it's keto, paleo, macrobiotic, vegan. I could go on for days, the fat loss plan, all these different things. And while there are great things about each one of them, I believe that every individual is individual. And so if we can pluck the things that are science-backed and valid for each and every one of those, I think we could form the perfect meal plan. But that would look different for everybody. The one thing that all of those meal plans have in common is the need for more produce. So more colorful things in our world and on our plate, which really relates to a highly plant-based diet. So that doesn't mean you need to become vegetarian or vegan or never eat a piece of bacon again. What that means is that a very large percentage of your food should come from plants. So what I like to teach people is something that I refer to as like the 75-25 approach. So can you eat a whole food plant-based diet 75% of the time? Well, 25% of the time you are human, meaning you have a glass of wine, or if you have some bacon or a steak or whatever that means for you, it's much more livable. When we try to push people too far into one direction, they stay there for a while, but they don't stay there for good, which is precisely why I don't believe in tracking macros or obsessing around all of that information either, because again, that's something people do short term. They don't do that long term, with the exception of a few people that are very methodical and on top of all of those things, and they will do exactly what you say to the T and never vary from that. Right. So yes, a highly plant-based approach, that's how I eat personally. There are, weeks and weeks that go by where I won't eat any meat at all. And then my other half might say, let's have a bison burger for dinner tonight. And as long as it's good, healthy, clean food, I do believe in, if people are going to eat meat and of course dairy and those sorts of things, that the sourcing is the most important thing. So grass-fed, wild caught meats as much as possible, cooking them in a healthy manner. If you're going to do dairy, make sure it's organic. If you can get your hands on raw dairy or sheep's milk dairy. I mean, those are all areas that allow you to still have a little cheese on your pizza, but just make it a little bit better for you. In that state, they retain a lot higher nutrient value and less of the damaging effects that we would see from long-term intake of foods such as too much dairy or too much meat.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. That's a great way to look at it, right? Not trying to pigeonhole people into some box that we need to put them in, but really starting to personalize it a little bit. And that was a term that you kind of threw out there. So, what are your thoughts and what's out there? I've sort of heard a term called epigenetics, or looking at really personalized nutrition. Can you expound on that, or what's coming or what's already here, that kind of thing?
Yes, well, it's, if you look at the trends, and again, I'm going to say the word trend, meaning trends that are actually backed by science. So not trends as in a new clothing item or something along those lines, or even one of those diet trends that comes every year, but trends meaning where the world is headed. And if we look at the word epigenetics, let's talk a little bit about what that means. So everybody's familiar with DNA. It's who we are. It's what we're made of. You can see it on the TV. You can see it in the doctor's office. You can see it on the billboards as you drive down the road. There's information about DNA everywhere, and a lot of different DNA tests. And while DNA testing is very helpful information, we also know that our DNA does not change. So we have the same DNA when we're born as when we leave the planet at the end of our life. What does change is our genetic expression, which is the definition, essentially, in simple terms, of epigenetics. So it's the factors that are influencing our genes, which leads into lifestyle behavior choices that we can make, either good or bad, that influence how those genes are behaving. So let me give you a couple of examples. So if I am, let's take twins for an example. Identical twins, we know that at the root they have the same DNA. Let's say that, they grow up, they're, of course, attached at the hip, but then they go on to live their own lifestyles. One moves out to New York City, is, immersed amongst smog, is, maybe works in a bar, smokes, drinks, lives a very unhealthy lifestyle, 30, 40 pounds overweight. Hopefully you see the image that I'm creating for you. The other one moves to California, where there's abundant sunshine. She's really into yoga, eats a, highly plant-based diet, exercises 5 to 6 days a week. Even though those two individuals possess the same DNA, we know that their lifestyle factors have affected their DNA differently. So we have one set of good behaviors, one set of not so good behaviors. You can say the same thing about diet. So when we look at how diet influences our epigenetic gene expression, it's very simple. When we know what is going on with our body at this moment in time, it gives us what I refer to as a roadmap or a blueprint to actually implement some lasting changes. So you can actually test through a very simple at-home urine kit that takes 5 minutes how your gene behavior is influencing the nutritional parameters that are being tested. So as an example, we can look at what we refer to as epigenetic biomarkers, and the 6 key areas that are really of interest here, which will lead us into personalized nutrition, are B vitamin and methylation cofactors. So you hear people all the time talking about methylation. It's kind of a hot topic these days. Also energy, cellular energy production. So what's the health of the mitochondria? Are those little cells of energy truly giving you energy, or are they starved for energy? Muscle assessment. So have you had some injuries maybe earlier in life that have created some nutritional imbalances because of those injuries? Also gut assessment. You hear a lot about leaky gut and all these things related to the gut, especially now with the immune system talk being all the rage. We know that a large percentage of the immune system is in the gut. So if we can do things to take care of our gut, then we have a healthier genetic behavior. Also the health of your amino acids, and then inflammation and oxidative stress. So when you look at those 6 key areas, that's really a lot of what could be causing a large number of problems in people's world. So when we look at those biomarkers that are underneath those umbrellas, what we can do is look at each person as an individual and look at exactly what is going on with them. And then based on that, we can design a personalized program, which starts with a custom nutrition formula that is, and you'll love this, made from all whole food organic plants. In other words, there is
Wow.
nothing synthetic. Doesn't come in a capsule or a shake or a potion or lotion or tonic. It actually comes in a green powder that looks and tastes like food. But what's different about this, and obviously we've seen green powders all over the place. So one of the simple ways to think of this is a green powder that is customized for every single person, made of whole foods. And the findings of that report I was speaking of earlier, which is generated when a person does that urine test, that generates what we refer to as a nutrition prescription or formula that becomes an individual's personalized nutrition. So that personalized superfood, we'll call it, it's really not even a supplement. It's a greens powder that is made of all whole foods, is really meant to fill in the gaps nutritionally for what a person is lacking based on their genetic expression. And then it gives you a foundation for, and this is where it gets really exciting, is no longer are you and I eating the same diet plan, but maybe you need more green vegetables and I need more orange. Or maybe I need more fish in my world and you need more cauliflower, whatever the case might be. It gives us a needle or a roadmap indicator of which direction to point in terms of creating that customized meal plan for ourselves. So therefore, all of this one size fits all nutrition and nutrition supplements really become less relevant than they ever have been, which is really where the world is heading. And it's because we're ready for personalized medicine, personalized nutrition, and personalized wellness. And I know that that's really exciting to you as a physician as well.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, that is, so the company that, and I apologize, I didn't include your affiliation. So Regenerate, is the company that is really, I think, pushing this in an awesome way. And Sonia happens to be the VP of product, development, I believe, with Regenerate. So I, as a physician, I mean, the notion that we can really, stop buying things off a shelf that is in a capsule that supposedly is going to replace all of your vitamins or whatever the case may be. And we can really sort of look at someone on an individual level and say, how do we maximize your, genetic expression, or how do we maximize your, metabolic pathway to really create wellness, was, that to me is like groundbreaking. And it was just really exciting as a physician to really be able to find a company like Regenerate and be able to partner, because I think it's important as a physician to really start to look at how do we create health, rather than just managing disease, which I think we've done really well for a long time, but now we really need to focus on creating health and maximizing people's health. So I was super excited about that. So thank you for giving a little clarity to that, about epigenetics and what the value of that is and how that works. And then I guess in your perspective, where do you, when we think about partnering with patients and partnering with people that are interested, how do we, what do you think is the best way to kind of to meet people where they are, like you were saying, not trying to put them in a box, or, mindset and those sorts of things. I mean, I've sort of opened my practice a little bit to health coaching. So that's an area that's really fascinating to me is, how do I partner rather than dictating care, which I think is what physicians typically are doing sometimes. How do we partner? How do we coach? How do we, nurture, sort of that mindset and that motivation? So I don't know if you have any thoughts around that, or, how we do better, I guess, is my question.
Well, and I think that, and thank you for that explanation. It's so, for me as a dietitian, and I go back some years now when I was working in clinical practice, and a lot of the physicians I would see just running around the hospital, it would be all about how do I, quickly fix what's wrong instead of how do we keep these patients out of the hospital. And so I love the shift that we're seeing in medicine. And don't get me wrong, there's still a place for, you need an antibiotic, you're sick, you have to go to the hospital, all of that. But I really truly believe that as healthcare professionals, physicians, dietitians, really all of us, we're living here and serving the same purpose, and that is to help keep people well and in that well state. So it all does start with the mindset. And people's readiness to make change. And so meeting them where they're at. But what I love about the testing that we're doing is it gives people a tangible, here's what's going on with me. It's a little like doing blood work. And the doctor says, well, you know, these labs look great, but there's these other 5 that are really out of focus. You're showing evidence that something is off. And if you can provide evidence that something is off nutritionally, our only goal is really to get things back into homeostasis so that the person thrives and lives the healthiest life possible. But that does start with mindset and the ability to receive the information. When you have somebody that's there and ready to receive that information, the other thing that I truly believe is taking it in bite-sized stages, which is why testing them in the beginning gives them, here's what's going on. Now, of these 6 key areas, let's really key in on, you know, the big ones here that we can focus on. And your custom nutrition will fill in the gaps for everything. But let's say that the gut health is really the problem. What can we do to maximize and work together to just work on that one key area? Because if we can get your gut healthier, it's going to spiral into other areas of better health. And so meeting people where they're at, working on their mindset, giving them small pieces, but also empowering them with the information and the knowledge and the roadmap to do so, which I think a lot of the problem comes with lack of education, but also lack of meeting the person where they're at, because everybody's level of readiness to change is completely different.
Very true. Very, very true. Yeah. Thank you. That was amazing. Thank you so much. So, I just want to say, you know, I appreciate you taking the time. This has been amazing to sort of have this dialogue and pick your brain from sort of, you know, as a collective team, I think taking care of people and really on that same mission to sort of nurture wellness. So I appreciate you taking the time, and I hope you guys got some value, those that are watching out there, from this little chat that we had. And if there's questions, feel free to reach out to me on my respective social channels, and I can certainly, if I need to, plug you in with Sonia if you feel like you've got something specific for her. So thank you for listening, and thank you, Sonia, for all of your time and your expertise. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. This was fun. Thank you for inviting me today. And it was nice to meet you all that are watching. We'll be coming back at you again at some point soon. Take care, everyone.
Take care.